I used to keep so many things in my home just in case, without noticing how much space they were taking, how they were mentally adding more onto my already full plate, and how I simply didn't use or need most of them. I'm no expert, I'm just a mom of two in her 30s who started seriously decluttering her home about 3 years ago. And I just found so much calm in a simpler home that it inspired me to share it with you. And while working with other moms helping them declutter their homes, I've learned that there are 50 things everyone declutters eventually. So you might as well do it this week. And one of them is dried up pans and markers. Even while you're watching this video, if you just grab a pan pot from your home and a piece of paper and just start testing them out. It doesn't take too long and it's such a simple task you can do this week. I know it doesn't sound much, and a lot of the things that I'm going to share with you are not big things. They're not like big decisions that are going to stress you out, but you know that 1% rule. Every single 1% improvement actually adds up. It really compounds in time and it truly makes your home easier to manage. So if you've been stressed out about your home, I think this will help you. Next thing on my list is free tote bags. Very often when you will buy something from a brand, especially sometimes if it's a more high-end brand or just when they have some sort of promotion going on, they will send you a free bag or they will gift you one when you're in the shop. And they can be useful. I actually have a few that I keep because I do use them a lot when we go shopping, when we go to the beach, or for running errands. They can be useful for a lot of things, but I would suggest maybe trying to go through your pile and see how many do you actually need, because if there are like 20 in there, chances are you're not using all of them. So it might be a good idea to get rid of some. Half-used candles is something that I tended to accumulate quite a lot in the past, and it's those things that you get excited to buy a new candle, you start using it, it's really nice, and then you get halfway through and sometimes you just buy another one or you get gifted another one and you start using the new one. You end up with a whole bunch of candles that are half used. So I would go through them and see, are there any that you haven't used in a long time? Maybe they're full of dust, maybe they just need to be gone. Also, craft items you never use. This is something we can accumulate a lot because it's quite fun. Like, I think craft items are, they're colorful, they're fun to look at, and sometimes we have this idea of what we might do with them, but if we don't actually have a plan to use them, or if we have accumulated a lot of them, then it's just kind of pointless to keep all of them. And I'm not saying get rid of all of them, because maybe crafting is your thing, and we do keep some, especially for the kids, because they do love crafting a lot. But it can be worth looking in your craft basket or wherever you keep them, just going through them once in a while and getting rid of anything that you don't really use or anything that you have in excess, because that's probably not really going to be helpful. Also, travel size items. And I know these sound like they're going to be so useful, especially when you obviously go traveling, but sometimes we have so many of them that it's so hard to go through all of them. We recently went back to Romania to visit our family, and I did buy some of those travel size products, just a few of them, like the ones that we use: a shampoo, conditioner, a face wash, things like that you do actually use. But I noticed when we got back from our trip, we actually still had like maybe half of them still in the bottle. And usually in the past, my thought process would have been, well, I'm gonna keep them for the next time we travel. But by the time we travel next, it might be that they're just not good anymore, or I forget where they are, and they just end up cluttering my bathroom cabinets or wherever I throw them in for a very long time after the trip. So what we do nowadays, we just use the travel products. So we got back home and we just used them the week after as well and got rid of them. There's no point in keeping so many travel size products. So if you do have a trip coming up soon, then maybe just make it a point to pack the travel items that you already have instead of buying more, or just use them up. Make use of the nice products you bought instead of letting them gather dust. Next up, we're moving on to clothes. And one of the first things I look at, especially in my wardrobe, is clothes that don't fit anymore. And it can be really hard, especially when you're in kind of a transition period, like maybe you're postpartum, maybe you're planning on having more babies, maybe you plan on losing weight, or you're just kind of in a fluctuating phase, which we go through in our lifetime. But in my daily wardrobe that I open every single morning, I want to make sure that what's in there is just clothes that actually fit me right now. It's okay to keep some items that maybe don't fit, but maybe you hope to fit into one day, especially if you're kind of in that transition period. But keeping a lot of them is probably not very useful. And if you do want to keep some, what I would do is I would probably keep them just stored away, just maybe in a storage bin, in a loft, under your bed, so that you know where to find them if you do need them, but not in your daily wardrobe that you open every morning, because I just find that that makes you feel bad about yourself. And I don't think that's what any of us want in the morning when we're getting dressed for the day. Also, socks without a pair. And I think this is such an easy declutter. Like, if it doesn't have a pair, you're probably not going to wear that pair of socks. It's a good time to just get rid of the mismatched one. Also, any clothes with tags still on. If I have clothes in my wardrobe that still have the tags on and it's been like weeks, months, and I haven't worn them, chances are I'm not going to wear that piece of clothing anyway. And I know it can make us feel bad because we feel like, well, we've wasted all this this money buying this item that we haven't worn. But actually, since it still has the tags on, you can probably sell it for a pretty good price on Vinted or Depop or any of these marketplaces. And since it still has a tag on, it has a higher value because obviously it hasn't been worn. So just make some extra cash from it instead of keeping it in your wardrobe, cluttering up without getting any use out of. Also, shoes that hurt your feet. I know some people say there are certain kinds of brands that you have to buy the shoe and wear it for a while before it gets comfortable. You know, it will rub on your feet before it gets very comfortable. And I am just not the kind of person who's willing to go through that for my shoes. I want my shoes to be pretty comfortable from almost day one. I get that, you know, shoes loosen up a bit, but if it rubs on my feet, if it's very uncomfortable, that's not something I'm going to keep in my wardrobe. And I think you'll just do yourself a favor by getting rid of those. Also, maternity clothes, if you're done having babies. If you still plan on having babies, then yes, it can be a good idea to keep some of those clothes and maybe keep them stored away in your loft or wherever, just so you have them on hand for when you do get pregnant again. But if you know you're kind of done having babies, which is where I am in my life, like I know we're not going to have any more babies. I think in the past I used to say I want more babies, but now we have to. We're very happy with the 2 children that we have. It was not easy having our second, like we went through infertility struggles. And so I think even if we did want a third, it would be either impossible or very hard. We also had a lot of baby losses before, so I just don't feel like mentally I can put myself through that again. So I'm pretty sure we are done. My maternity clothes all went on Vinted or I donated them to friends. But yeah, that's something worth going through and getting rid of anything you don't need anymore. Also, jewelry that's tarnished or broken or even tangled, because chances are you're not going to wear that piece of jewelry anymore, or it's not going to be very healthy for you either, right? I don't think anyone likes wearing jewelry like that or even going through the hassle of, you know, fixing it or untangling it, depending on how bad it is. I think most likely you won't end up wearing those pieces anymore again. So this is a good chance to get rid of them and just clear up some space. Also, broken or scratched sunnies. I know this can happen so easily. I know my sunnies get sometimes scratched. I actually tend to only keep one pair of sunglasses because I find that that's all I need really. And when that gets broken or too scratched or something happens, then I will just go and replace it. But I don't find a need to have more than one pair. So it's also worth asking yourself, you know, how many of those sunnies do you actually wear? Do you need a lot of spares? I think it's fine to have a spare, but if you're not actually using them, then it might be worth decluttering them. And also too many hangers. I think we accumulate so many hangers because sometimes you will buy clothes that come with the hanger on, especially if you order online or if you buy it from someplace like Tesco, from the supermarket, they'll give you the hanger. Actually now, if I do buy something from there, I tend to try to leave the hanger with them at checkout because I don't want to bring that hanger home. It doesn't, you know, match with any of the other hangers, and there's nothing wrong with having mismatched hangers. But when there are a lot of mismatched ones, it kind of makes the whole wardrobe a bit bulky. It makes it look a lot more cluttered, and I just prefer to have a lot of them or most of them the same. So, you know, it might be worth looking through your hangers and seeing if you have a lot of those, maybe take them back to Tesco or take them to recycling or just get rid of any that you don't really use. Also, baby clothes that your kids have outgrown, those are easy to go through and get rid of. Any shoes that your kids have outgrown, and it's good to have a check-in either before school starts or, you know, before these kind of milestones that we have in life to just check, do those shoes still fit? Are there any that you don't fit into anymore? And just get rid of those. Also, kids artwork that has piled up, and I know we tend to have a lot of that because my kids love arts and crafts, so that's something we go through a lot. And also kids school worksheets. They come home with a lot of worksheets that they've done at school, and I don't know about you, but my kids, like, they sometimes want to keep some of them just to kind of look back on their work or keep some of their school books, which is fine, but sometimes it's a random piece of English work or like phonics or maths that they don't really care about, and so that's something we declutter most of the time. And also it's worth looking through board games and puzzles. Are there any that have missing pieces? Because if they do, if it's like unplayable anymore, then there's really no point in keeping it. Then moving into kind of the bathroom category, it's worth looking at expired medicine if that's where you keep yours. So if there's any medicine that's expired, obviously there's no point in keeping it. And also looking through old makeup or old skincare products, because those, you know, if they're very old, especially if it's like a liquid consistency, then that's not really great to put on your skin anymore. So it's really worth checking those and getting rid of any that are not good anymore. And also broken hair ties and hair clips. And I think especially if you have daughters, we have so many hair ties and hair clips and they do get broken sometimes. I just make it a point to try to get rid of them if I see them broken because there's no point in keeping them. Then moving into the kitchen area, if you have any Tupperware that has no lids on and you're not really using that anymore, then that's a good sign to declutter it. And also those kitchen appliances that you don't use. I used to have a lot of these, and just a few examples like a fondue set, a bread maker, a sandwich maker, a waffle maker. I also used obviously have a slow cooker, and there's nothing wrong with having either of these if you do use them. Like if you use a waffle maker every week to make waffles for your kids, then obviously keep that. But if it's appliances that you keep in the back of your cupboard and you never use, or you avoid using because you hate cleaning them, which is what I did, then this is a good sign to just get rid of them. Also, chipped plates or bowls. I am actually quite bad at doing this because we actually have, I think, a plate or two that has a little chip in it, and I still use it. I wouldn't use it for my guests, but for myself, I still use it to have breakfast in, and it doesn't really bother me. But I don't know, let me know what you think. Is there any way to repair it? I don't think so. I should probably get rid of mine and replace it if needed, but yeah, let me know your thoughts on chipped like bowls and plates. Also, water bottles you've collected, because we do tend to collect quite a few of these. Now we only keep one per person in this household because it just makes things so much easier. There's only one bottle per person to clean every day, and it doesn't really take up much cupboard space as well. Also, look through cookbooks that you never use. You know, there's nothing wrong with having cookbooks and maybe displaying them if you do like them, but if you have a lot of them and you find that you maybe gravitate towards 2 or 3 that are your favorite, then maybe it's a good time to get rid of the other ones. And also items in the back of your pantry, or if you don't have a pantry like I don't, but if you have something like a cupboard in your kitchen that you use as kind of your pantry cupboard, then just look in the back if there's anything that, you know, you don't use or you haven't used in a long time, or maybe it has gone bad, then this is your sign to get rid of it. Also, old cleaning products that maybe didn't do the job. I know in the past I used to buy so many cleaning products for lots of different purposes. Like I would buy a specific one for the hob, a specific one for the bathtub. They have so many different categories of cleaning products you can buy. Now I actually only keep like very minimal cleaning products that are kind of like they go for every surface. But if you do have some, especially that you've tried and they haven't lived up to the hype, or maybe you tried them and they didn't work, there's no point in keeping it, right? If you're not using it, then get rid of it. And also look at old cleaning sponges and cleaning cloths and towels, things like that you have maybe in your kitchen or under your sink, because those can get quite grimy in time, and so it's worth looking through them and getting rid of the ones that are just like too far gone. And also, one thing I used to have is a lot of plastic bags stuffed under the sink. And you know how you usually have like your cleaning products? I used to put all of my plastic bags, like stuff them in there. It was just a mess. I don't really do that anymore. I actually don't really keep plastic bags anymore because I find we don't really have much of a need for them. Maybe like 1 or 2 here and there. We do keep some reusable, some of those like tote bags, but we don't need that many bags. And so any plastic bag, we usually just recycle it at a big supermarket. Also, any takeout menus, those would be good to recycle, because most likely if you need to see a restaurant's menu, you're gonna go online and look for it, especially if you wanted the, you know, updated version of it. Any old magazines and newspapers, that's good to get rid of. I think, you know, keeping a lot of old magazines and newspapers, for one, a lot of the info in it might be outdated, or you're just not gonna browse through them again, so just get rid of them and create some space in your living room. Also, books you won't read again. I actually need to go through my books as well, because I have a few that I know I'm either not excited to read anymore, even though I was when I first bought them, and so I might get rid of those, maybe put them on Vinted or Zifit. I think it's not called Zifit anymore, I think it's World of Books. And I also have books that I have already read and I know I probably don't want to read again, and so those are books that I'm actually going to go through and declutter as well. One thing that we also tend to accumulate is instruction manuals, and sometimes for appliances that we don't even own anymore. Like we do keep the instruction manuals for, like, it came with the house with all of the appliances that are in it, and you know, obviously that might be helpful to keep, or you can probably even find them online if you prefer to, but that's something that's good to get rid of, especially for things you don't own anymore. And also look at your warranties as well, because obviously those expire too, and there's no point in keeping them if they're expired or if you don't own the item anymore. Also, old business cards. You know, when you look through a pile of paperwork and you have like business cards from a long time ago, either yours or some that you got from somebody else, and that's just good to get rid of as well. And also old receipts, unless you actually have to keep it for like business purposes, although even for my business nowadays I just keep everything digitally, it's just so much easier, but that's worth just decluttering. Moving on to kind of tech and electronics, I find that sometimes we have old phone chargers and like cables for devices that maybe we no longer use or we no longer own, and those are just an easy declutter. If you don't know what the cable is, either keep it stored like in a special storage box for those kinds of things, or just declutter it, because most likely you don't really need it. Also, old phones, you know, sometimes you replace your phone and you still keep the old one, and I think there's no real purpose in doing that. Now we just get rid of the old phone. If we ever upgrade our phones, which I haven't done in years, but if we do, then we just get rid of the old one. Either sell it, maybe get a bit of money back, or just declutter it altogether altogether if it's not good anymore. And speaking of phones, also old phone cases or phone cases that you don't use because maybe you have a lot, which I used to have like a few phone cases in the past. And then I realized, why am I storing all of these phone cases when I just need one, like one that's on my phone? I don't need one to match with every outfit. I don't need a whole bunch of phone cases. But I think especially if you have phone cases for old phones that maybe don't fit your phone right now, because obviously the size changes, then just get rid of them. And also old headphones. If you're not using them, they're just taking up space. You can sell them on Vinted maybe if they're still in good condition, or just get rid of them. And a lot of these tech things you can take to like tech recycling. I think Curry's PC World do that. So if you're not sure where to take them, that would be a good place to try. Batteries you're not sure work anymore. You know, if you have a drawer full of batteries and whenever you have to change your battery in a remote, you have to go and like scavenge through to find which one works and which one doesn't. This is a good time to maybe just take 5 minutes, try them all and see if they actually work. And if they don't, then just get rid of them, because keeping a whole bunch of batteries is also, I think, a bit unsafe because they can leak, can't they? So yeah, that's good to get rid of. And also keyboards or a computer mouse that maybe doesn't work anymore. Those are the kinds of things that we tend to just declutter straight away. If it doesn't work, or if we've changed the setup, like the computer, and we don't need it anymore, then that's just good to declutter. And also all the laptops and tablets. We actually used to keep an old tablet just to put white noise on it for my daughter when she was a baby. And now she's, you know, a bit older. She's 3 years old and she doesn't really need white noise anymore. So she will just go to sleep without it. So we decluttered that tablet. So I get there's a point sometimes in keeping an older device like that. But once you realize you're not using it anymore, then it's a good time to declutter it. And also CDs and DVDs, let me know if you still use them. We just don't tend to use them anymore. And I don't think you have usually like a device to use them on, because laptops don't come with a CD player anymore. And yeah, if you find that you have a whole collection, but you're not actually using it, then it's a good time to get rid of it, because everything's pretty much digital these days, isn't it? And when we look at like home decor items and just general home items, some things that I think are good to declutter are bedding sets for maybe a bed size that you don't even own anymore. Sometimes you swap beds or you swap your layout to make your home work for the stage of life that you are in right now. And we have changed in the past, like the mattress or the bed size, and then we've kept the old bedding sets just in case. Throughout the years, we realized, I don't know why we're keeping those, because we're obviously not going to use them again. They don't fit on the bed anymore. So either if you do keep them as a guest set, then obviously that's fine. But if you find that you don't really have any sort of use for it, then there's no point in keeping it. Also, lots of spare blankets, because I know throws blankets, they're so cute, they're so cozy, but we don't really need 20 of them. So for us, we try to keep a few. I think we have 3 down here and then 2 upstairs or something like that. Just a few to, you know, keep it cozy. The kids love to maybe sometimes make a fort with them and snuggle up on the sofa. So we do keep a few, but not in excess amounts, because, you know, there's only 4 of us in this house. Also, fake plants that are gathering dust. I used to have a lot of fake plants because I was so intimidated by real plants. And to be fair, I did kill quite a few in my lifetime, but I feel like we've gotten better at it. And what I realized is that I think I was often just over watering them, and that's why they were dying. So now we actually don't have a lot of plants, but we have a few, and I've replaced the, you know, like fake plants we had with real plants. And I really like that. I think it's just such a nice feel to have a real plant in your house rather than a lot of plastic ones. And also any vase that you don't use. I had quite a few of those. I feel like somehow you just tend to collect them. And I realized I use one and that's it. For the most part, like sometimes if it's a special occasion and you get sent flowers, I realized I can use my spatula container, like my spatula jug, as a flower vase. So sometimes you have other things you can use for a vase if you need to, but I just don't want to keep a whole cupboard full of vases just in case I get sent 10 bouquets of flowers, which doesn't really happen that often, does it? And also any empty storage containers that you don't use. I think it's nice to keep some because obviously they can be useful. Even if right now you declutter and you realize I'm left with all of these empty containers, then I have kept in the past a few of them just to see if I end up using them. But when I see that actually no, I don't have a use for these, then it's just a good time to declutter them. Let me know what you would add to this list. I would be really curious to hear from you. And if you do need more help, I have a free decluttering checklist with just a whole lot of categories for you to go through and some of my tips on how I got started. That will be linked in the description box. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you in the next one.